1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Bum 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 bum. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. Hey everyone, welcome back to World Drum Club. I'm Kalani, your host and teacher, and in this lesson, I'm going to be showing you examples of a concept called rhythmic modulation. What is rhythmic modulation? Well, you know it's rhythmic. Modulation is any time we change something fundamental about a piece of music, but we leave most of it intact. In this case, we're changing the pulse, the beat, the metronome mark. And I'll get into that in a minute, and I'll show you how the tempo can change. But we're actually using a subdivision method. There's different ways you can modulate rhythmically, but this is a really cool thing to be hip to. Don't you want to be hip to it? So I'm going to explain this, but I just gave you a couple examples of how you can modulate to what seems like a faster tempo or what could become a faster tempo, or modulate to what seems like a slower tempo. And it's not doubling or halving. I mean, you could do that, but that's not really a modulation in the way that we usually think of it. Modulation is just changing something a little bit. So I'm going to give you another example and see if you can see what I'm doing here. I'm going to give you one more example like I just did, but pay attention to what's happening with the pulse. I'll give you a count, and then I'm going to do a little thing, and then we'll be in a different tempo or different feel. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2. And you can play anything, doesn't matter. Whatever you're playing. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hey. Beep, 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 beep. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. Da 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 da. I wasn't quite sure which way I wanted to go there. All right. So have you noticed what I'm doing? What is the method or the trick there? And you can see where even I got a little like which fork in the road do I want to take here? Because there's different ways you can use this. But the basic technique or method is going from subdividing the beat, the main beat. So the 1, 2, 3, 4, right? Is subdividing it into a triplet. If you're in duple meter, you can do this from triple to duple, but we're just going to deal with one form right now. So I'm going to go from, we're going to keep everything in like a 4/4 feel, right? Or duple meter feel. But you can go the other way. You can go from triple to duple. But in this lesson, I don't want to throw too much at you. So duple meter, 1 and 2 and 3, or 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and a dot 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 D. And then what I'm doing, and there are different ways to do this. Like I said, there's several different ways. What I'm doing is breaking that duple, right, the 2 into a 3. So we're going from 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and, right, to 1 tita, 2 tita, 3 tita, 4 tita, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Then you probably know what happens next, right? Then I'm taking those sets of 3, and now I'm going to change the quarter note or the pulse to every 2 of those. So I'm basically taking something that's in thirds, and I'm taking 2/3 of it, and that becomes the new quarter note and eighth note. What am I talking about? Let me give you an example. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and bum. Bum, beep, bum, beam, bum, beep, bop, beep, beep, bop, beep, beep, bop, beep, 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 bum, beam, bop, beep, bop, beep, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Did you catch that? I'm going to use a metronome to help me here. So I've got a metronome here at 100 beats a minute. Let's listen to it. And now here's the subdivision. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Now, I'm going to replace that subdivision with this subdivision. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and then that becomes my new eighth note. 1 E and a 2 E, or 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2, or 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a. Did you catch that? Let's review one more time. Here we are at 100 beats a minute. Subdivide. Change the subdivision. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3. Or go to here. So let me do it with playing a beat. 1 and 2 and 3. Right? We got a little cha-cha-cha. All right. Hopefully that clears it up or makes it solidify a little more for you. Incidentally, what I think is interesting, and those of you that are fans of math, which is like 2 of you, if we're at 100 beats a minute, and I have a subdivision here, but then I take that 100 beats a minute and I break it up into threes, but then I change that 3 into a 2, or a 4, change it to a 4. What is the new tempo? I start at 100, I divided it into 3, and then I change that 3 into the new 4 subdivision of the new tempo, if that makes sense. And it's pretty easy, actually, if you just think about, well, I don't know if it's easy. It's easy for me because I can see basically what happens here. But let's listen. And then we're going to go to, we're going to change from this, or, so the question is, what is this tempo relative to that? I'm not going to torture you guys much with math, but it's interesting because if we start at 100 and then we divide that by 3 and then we make the 3 into 4, subdivision of 4, we get 75, pretty much. So the new tempo actually would be this quarter note. Oh, sorry. Or we could double it up and it would be 150. Right? Which kind of makes sense, right? If we take 100 and then we divide that into parts of 3 and then we make that into 4, I don't know, somehow we've gone from 100 to 150 or from 100 to 75 if we're halving it. You know what? You guys figure out the math. I'm tired. I want to move on to something else. So, which is to give you another example. Now that you know what's happening, I want to play a little bit more for you and just give you a couple more examples of how you would modulate rhythmically and also answer the question, why? Why would we want to modulate rhythmically? Well, it's to change up the music. You could be a composer and you maybe want to write an arrangement and you want to have a different section, but instead of doing the typical things that you would do to change the section, like you can always go to halftime or double time or go into a triplet feel as opposed to a duple feel, but how cool is it to do a rhythmic modulation where you change up the actual feel of the tempo or the implied tempo, or you make a permanent change and you actually transition into a new tempo feel. So again, let's go back and I'm gonna play for you and I'm gonna give you a clue. I'm gonna vocalize and give you an example of how I'm kind of thinking, what I'm feeling. And I wouldn't normally vocalize this, but I'm going to do it for the example. So here we go again. And you can follow along now because you know what's happening, right? So a 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1, 2, 3, 4. Then I'm gonna get my eighth notes. Bop beep 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 bop. And now I'm gonna go with my triplets. Subtle change, right? So instead of da 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 da, I turn that. I have to feel that first. So when you practice this, get whatever triplet feel, in your mind's ear, and then turn that into a duple or chop it up into groups of 2 or 4, and then make that into your new pulse. So and now from here, so we can use this it's like shifting gears, right? Your engine is there kind of going the same speed, but if you shift gears, now either you're going to go a different speed or your engine's going to go a different speed. Everything kind of stays the same for the most part, but something changes, some other thing changes. It's not jarring. It should feel like a new section or something new in the music, but without changing most of the things about the music. I hope this is making sense. Now, for you patrons of the channel, we're going to continue this, and I'm going to show you another way that you can do a rhythmic modulation that is smooth, uses the same idea, but in a little bit different way, all right? And I'm also going to give you guys some notation so you can see it maybe a little bit easier. Makes that a little bit easier. So if you're not a patron of the channel, you can join us at patreon.com/Kalani. Either way, I hope you enjoy this. If you'd like to add anything below, helpful and positive to the comment section, please do. World Drum Club is here for everyone, and our mission is to share information about music, about drumming, about cultures, so that we can all benefit. So if you'd like to share something below, please do. Please be kind, be informative. We appreciate that. Of course, like, subscribe, hit the bell, all that stuff. And I'll see you patrons for an extension of this lesson over at patreon.com/Kalani. Get your World Drum Club swag below and check out some of the new designs. Support the channel. I appreciate you guys. I'll see you soon.